Hey there, Brian Castle here. I am the founder of Clarityflow, and today in my conversation, I'm talking to Jason Resnick. It was a great conversation. I've known Jason for many years. What's most interesting to me about Jason's work as a coach and a consultant is how he has really, for lack of a better word, he has sort of like branded himself as the go-to expert for a particular piece of technology. These days, it's ConvertKit and email marketing automation. He knows everything about that, and we do get into some of the weeds and tactics and technical tips there. Not too much, I promise. But even going back years, he used to do this. He for years he was the WordPress go-to expert, and so it's sort of a pattern. And I think it's really interesting. And we talk all about how that has helped him really grow his audience and client base, and a really, really strong coaching business by being the premier go-to expert in the ConvertKit creator coaching space, and how he actually structures his offerings, his interactions with the ConvertKit team, and that whole side of the business, and really what is the difference between a client who might go directly to like a customer support for the particular tool, or working with a coach and consultant like Jason, who can take it far beyond in terms of like business advice and consultation and connecting to other tools. It's a really interesting space to develop an incredible coaching business as Jason has done with his business, which he calls nurturekit.co. We'll get everything linked up in the show notes, but for now, let's get into my wide-ranging chat with Jason Resnick. Enjoy. Jason Resnick, good to connect with you again. How are you doing?
Good. How are you, Brian?
Doing good, yeah. So I'm excited to talk to you today. I mean, we've talked many times over the last many years now, and I think we started talking years ago about productized services together. We were talking a lot about WordPress. I know you've been very active in that community, going back years, but in more recent years, I mean, you've become known as the ConvertKit guy. You've got your site and your service, Nurture Kit. And you've sort of developed a name for yourself and a coaching and consulting practice around the ConvertKit community and user base. And I just think that whole model is fascinating, and I'm looking to dig into it. I mean, the way that I'm usually kicking off these interviews is to ask, like, instead of just the typical like, hey, tell me about what you do, maybe you can give us an example of one or two recent clients. Whether you could share their names or not, but just like give us like, what does it look like from their perspective? Who these days, today in 2023, like who is finding you, following you, and working with you, and what does that engagement sort of look like?
Yeah. Creators who sell something online. So to be concrete about it, um, you know, a recent client of mine, coaching client of mine, was selling photography courses, programs, even a coaching, um, really around building a business, not necessarily this like the tactics of photography, but it was like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
build a proper business around your photography, right? And she offers membership, she offers one-off coaching, and she one-off courses, and she offers high-end coaching. And so what she found was my YouTube channel, and she was looking for, she was a tinkerer. She didn't mind getting her hands dirty in the tech, but she was trying to figure out certain things, like how do I properly put people into the funnel and give them the right offer at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And she found my YouTube channels. She found, she basically binge watched my channel. And she reached out to me saying, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get that right offer in front of my right audience. I have a decent sized list. I mean, that's her words. Like, I always say there's no such thing as a small list. And she's like, look, I want to automate this. I want to scale my business in ways that I could just go to the top of the funnel and put somebody in and reliably serve them free and paid content in what they need at the right time. And we worked together for, I guess it was close to about 6 months.
Huh.
And we put in a full-fledged funnel. And I say we developed the strategy. She actually went ahead and deployed this in her own account, with, overseeing from me basically a lot of asynchronous stuff, which we'll get into. But basically going from, hey, who is this person, to, hey, buy my coaching program, all the way. And times we figured out what our sales cycle was,
Mm-hmm.
how were we segmenting people, how were we personalizing the pitches. I mean, the visual of the main controller of this automation, I mean, it's a lot of branches in there because she has a lot of different products, but it's simplistic because it makes total
Yeah.
sense for whoever they are at the time, and they just keep cycling through. So that's who I work with, are creators that are really trying to scale their business and sell to the right people in their audience,
Mm-hmm.
the right products that they want at the right time.
It's actually pretty interesting because it sounds like, a creator who, is probably very similar to the type of user who would be using Clarityflow. And it seems like you're helping them with like the marketing side and the funnels as you described it, and how they kind of connect all the dots between people finding them, subscribing to them, purchasing their products, hiring them as coaches. Um, and then like sort of what Clarityflow is doing is like kind of like the tooling around actually communicating with clients and doing the actual work together. So it sounds like a very similar type of user where, like you described, it's someone who has who offers some form of coaching and probably also offers some like a course, um, and also develops an audience with a newsletter or a YouTube channel or a podcast or all of those things. Um, and so where like ConvertKit and like email marketing come into play, it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that type of use case, a creator who's doing a lot of like different products that line into course to community to coaching, that's where email marketing and connecting with their audience can be really powerful. And like you described, like showing the right offer at the right time. It's actually like
Yeah.
a lot, in my case with Clarityflow, like our own email marketing is just super simple. Like sign up for the product, get a few emails, and we nurture you, and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I could imagine it's a lot more. There's a lot more that you can do that can be effective when you have like multiple offers like that.
Yeah. And in her case, for example, right, she had different, photographers, one that was doing it as side hustles, wedding photographers, that was their business, you know what I mean? So there's different segments of that audience, and she has her podcast and she has blog, and these attract different kinds of people and different needs. And what email really does is it does connect with your audience in a much more personalized way or deeper way. And you can personalize that experience based on who they are and where they came in from, whether it is a beginner article or an advanced article, and you can kind of make
Mm-hmm.
some assumptions around that and create that proper journey with them. And, a lot of creators, uh, or even online businesses, like let's call them, what they tend to do with email is they they build up those lead magnets, the autoresponders and those sort of things, and then they're just dumped into the regular broadcasts, the weekly
Mm-hmm.
broadcasts, and away they go. And then, hey, this quarter I'm going to launch something, so they push out a sales pitch. The only thing they do is exclude the people that already bought, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you do that over and over again, then your audience gets tired. They're like, okay, this isn't the time for me to buy that. And you're only giving me a week to decide this. And just with the behavior of, whether it is the economic climate, whether it's COVID exhaustion, pandemic stuff left over or whatever, but people don't want to feel anxious in their own inbox anymore. They
Mm-hmm.
really want to be able to those timers don't work like they used to, right? Like that we always saw, like, hey, you got until midnight to do this thing, right? Like they just don't work as well anymore. And so what people want is a unique experience to them. And they want to be
Yep.
able to know that, like, hey, when I need this thing, I want to be able to buy it, right? And also have it land in their inbox when it makes sense for them to get this thing. So,
Yeah. And that
Rabbit,
piece that just like having it land, that's become harder than ever. And that just speaks to like, you got to keep the quality up and
yep,
frankly, the sales pitch is down in order to consistently reach their inbox because Gmail will throw you into promotions or sometimes not even deliver you to the inbox.
yep.
And that kind of stuff can
Yeah,
really
and
mess up
and
your whole list,
iOS, iOS has really thrown a monkey wrench into things. I mean, like there was
Mm,
always like corporate and healthcare industry, like where there was software blocking a lot of this stuff. I mean, iOS, if you're using Apple Mail now, you can sign up for mail privacy protection out to your iCloud account, and it makes it seem like you should be doing that. And now you get things blocked all the time. And from us, from a business perspective, we don't know if they're even checking email anymore. So
yeah.
there's a lot of the tech getting in the way. So if your content's good and you create those unique experiences, the end user, your subscriber or your customer, then wants your email in the inbox and
Yeah.
they'll make room for you in the inbox and be on the lookout for that.
Well, we're getting into some of the technical details here, which I'm sure we'll come back to. But I mean, so people know you, your name, Jason Resnick, and ConvertKit. But what do you think kind of makes your brand of coaching pretty unique in this space? I mean, just from for me, someone who's been watching your work over many years and recently, it seems to me like number one, I just think of Jason is the ConvertKit guy. Like if you're if you're at all using ConvertKit or in that space and you're a creator, aside from like ConvertKit's own team, in terms of like independent like service consultants, I don't know of anyone else who's more associated with them than you are right now. And also just like email marketing tips in general. I mean, is that how you are thinking about yourself? Like how would you kind of differentiate from like other avenues that people would go for these
Yeah.
things?
I mean, like I planted my flag with ConvertKit, mainly because that's the kind of people they have the customers of the kinds of people that I like to work with, right? Online business owners who are, trying to build a business designed around the life they want, right? And so most people can resonate with that, right? Because that's what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing for myself. And I'm pretty, I'm maybe not totally billed in public, but I talk about my family. I talk about, behind the scenes stuff from time to time. But what I think people really come to me for is one, I am super technical. I mean, I'm a data geek.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a developer. Like I always say,
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
a
like when you and I
recovering
first met,
developer.
like
Yeah,
I knew you as a web developer and like a
right.
WordPress developer. So you're taking that like tech background to something that's much more accessible
Right.
here. Yeah.
And it's visual. And what it is that like I don't write emails for people. Yes, I've learned copywriting tactics and strategies over the years and stuff and my own study of it. But what I help people do is really automate the mundane, right? And automate messaging and segmentation to match. And so what I can do is listen to somebody, what their desires are, what they're trying to accomplish, and then in my brain do a translation of like, okay, these are the kinds of automations that we want to build in. These are the kinds of questions that we need to ask our subscribers, and then translate it back out into them plain English, and say, hey, this is what we need to build out. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like one of my, I guess, superpowers when I, graduated college is, ages ago and stuff. One of my directors said, like, you're a geek that can speak human, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
skill, right? And so
Yep.
for me, taking a creative idea of like, for the example, the photography business, she had this thought and she basically flow charted out this thing. And then I was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And then this is what we need to execute on through the tool. And we did it all asynchronously. Sure, we had a Zoom call here and there, but it was all asynchronous thanks to Clarityflow, because it was like she worked on it when she could work on it. I showed up and gave her advice and thoughts, and we shared screens and files and all the rest of it back and forth, and it worked out better and most likely faster than had we had like a weekly one-on-one coaching call, right?
I love it. I mean, that's exactly how I work with my team as well. I want to hear more about, like, so what does an engagement with you actually look like? So how does a client start? How do you deliver? What I heard you say, I was a little bit unclear about this. Yeah, like how much are you actually like implementing for them, like in their ConvertKit account or on their website, versus like just giving them some guidance on letting them do it? You mentioned that she writes a lot of the content. So like how do all the pieces kind of fit together, and how do you like kind of manage the engagement?
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, I'm a client services business, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so there's basically 3 tiers that my clients work with me. First tier is custom bespoke project, right? Where I'm helping them with the strategy as well as implementation. So I'm doing everything that we plan out. Next phase, the bottom sort of tier of clients are book a days, right? These are the people that like, hey, I know I want to do this campaign. I don't want to deal with ConvertKit. I just want to hire Jason for a day. And
Mm-hmm.
I go in and I do the thing. So it's like straight implementation. Yeah, strategy comes along with it just from my experience and all that, but there's no game plan. It's like, hey, I want to prune my list, or I want to do a customer onboarding thing, or whatever the case
Mm-hmm.
is, right? And I just basically go in their account and set it up. The middle ground, which is something that Clarityflow has really helped me with, is the people that don't mind tinkering, or they have somebody on their team already that does the ConvertKit stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what those people need is, hey, I'm doing this stuff already, right?
Yeah,
I'm
like
kind
just
of
help
doing
me
it.
like not mess
Yeah,
this up.
right. And like I want to really dial in the strategy behind it. Like, how do I get somebody from A to B, like from a new subscriber to a customer, and then a customer to a repeat customer? Like, what's that look like? And how do we get that implemented, right? And they don't want to necessarily, they don't need me to hire, they don't need to hire me to do that stuff. But this middle ground, which I, affectionately call it ConvertKit coach. I mean, straight, it's an email coach. Like, like it was
Mm-hmm.
something that I developed towards the end of last year, and I launched it at the beginning of this year. Was, you know, basically that. It's an asynchronous coaching program where you have me in your back pocket, and you can ping me at any time. We do a deep dive. We lay out the strategy. But moving forward from that, it's it's Clarityflow. Like everything's in Clarityflow, files, text, audio, video, share screen, all the things. And that's like it's great because they're doing the work and I
Uh-huh.
check in on them, or they ask me a question and I answer it, and we go back and forth. And a lot of times I'm doing the stuff in the morning and they're doing it at night. And
Mm-hmm.
the ball is moving down the field versus them kind of in the past when I've done sort of consulting, it's like they wait until Thursday to ask me everything. And then
Mm-hmm.
they do like a sprint and then they get stuck and then they wait till Thursday again. And so this kind of just greases the wheel, so to speak, because it's like they ask the question, I answer it. They ask the question and I answer it. And, I can even check and balance them because I do have access into their account, but they're the ones inside of the account to go ahead and actually do the work. And then I could say,
Mm-hmm.
give, hey, I think I would do it this way. And the only reason why I would do it this way is because of this reason, and kind of
It's
coach them to use the platform better.
it's so interesting. I mean, there's so many little things I want to kind of unpack there. I was talking to Rob Hatch on this podcast on the last episode, and he was talking about like he has a similar, I mean, totally different type of coaching, but similar packages structure where there's like a middle plan that's just all asynchronous, and the key driver there was that like the people that he's coaching, they are just super busy in their businesses and their work to a point where it's like, well, a coaching call in the middle of a business day is actually a big distraction
Yes.
and takes them away from actually doing the work that they need coaching for,
Hmm. Yeah.
So
I mean, I have a
and
coach.
then like you being there like in the like I can't tell you how many times like I've been working with a tool and it's like, well, I'm working on this project today. So I have my question today. I want to send it. I don't need an answer this hour, but I don't want to wait a week.
Right. Yeah. I mean, truth be told, I have another coaching client, and he's a I guess like a shooting coach, for lack of a better term. Like he
Hmm.
helps athletes become better shooters. He
Oh,
does Olympic trainers, he does hobbyists, he does leagues and stuff like that, and nations hire him to help their national teams and stuff like that. And like
wow.
right now, he's going back and forth between Italy and Qatar, right? So,
Hmm.
and I'm in New York. So, like when he's working on something, I'm asleep, or vice versa. And like,
Hmm.
I mean, there's no way that we could sync up at any point in time, especially if he's in the Middle East. Like, there's like one of
Yeah,
us is going to be up at 3 a.m., right? Like,
just
there's no
completely
way that
prohibitive.
we could
Yeah.
do like a Zoom call, but yet we're pushing the ball down the field because he, like you said, he's working on it now. He's doing, coaching teams and things of that nature. So, like, he does this stuff at any time, when he gets
Hmm.
a few minutes. And like, with all his travel, he has no idea where Wi-Fi is going to be and that sort of stuff too. So it's like, it just
Yeah.
the asynchronous component for me has always been one of those things, not just to like not feel obligated to show up on a day if you didn't have a chance to do the stuff and then you feel bad about yourself. But two, it's
Hmm.
like we're global, right? Like I'm in New York, and if somebody is on the other side of the planet, it's really difficult to try to sync schedules and time zones and
Yeah, I
all the
mean it
things.
would be totally prohibitive to
Yeah.
like you literally wouldn't be able to work with people. Like I've had really close team members and clients and customers in Australia where there is like a half an hour if not like a 1 hour window where if we wanted to get on a live call it'd be like super early for them and super late for me, right?
Right.
Um but like asynchronous totally opens up that relationship and actually makes it possible.
Yep. Yeah.
Um yeah. I mean, the other thing that I keep talking about on this show and everywhere else, I'll keep screaming about it with async is like it's not just that it's more convenient, it's actually better because you have time to think and prepare and maybe edit or re-record or jot down some notes before you send back that next response, right? Because if we're talking on a live call, you have a question for me, I have to have an answer for you right now. And I'm just going to blurt out the first thing that comes to my mind. And it's probably not going to be very smart or helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if I have time to think about it and come back to you later in the day or tomorrow, like we actually, we're more productive that way. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that you say that because there is many times where I'll have that knee jerk answer like, oh, you should be doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll read that in the email. Like if it's a text response through Clarityflow and I get that thing, I'll look, and then what's nice is like you get all those different notifications too, right? Like check the email, check the message, reply to the
Mm-hmm.
message and stuff. So there's like those 3 tiers of notifications that you can get, right? So I'll check that email and then usually I sleep on it, right?
Yeah.
Like, unless it's something that I can just reply back right away and know that that's count. Otherwise, I sleep on it. And what I've told some clients is that like my promise to them is every Tuesday and Friday I show up. But that's the that's that's my promise. But the goal is to show up every day, right? Like I
Right.
don't want them to wait, right? And truth be told, I don't, I check every day.
Mm-hmm.
it,
Yeah.
it's a
I like that
manageable thing,
framework
right?
though, because it gives you some space to like, whatever, take the kids somewhere on a
Right,
Wednesday, like,
right.
yeah.
And what I've told some of my clients is like, look, you're gonna get a notification when I see the message in an email, right? You're gonna get that notification when I watch the message or hear the message, or whatever the case is. Don't think that I'm immediately gonna respond if it's a complicated question. If I'm reviewing text or an automation or something of that nature, but know that at least within the next 24 hours, you're going to get a response from me,
Hmm.
right? So like we kind of have this, I mean, I've told them this, but there's this understanding there that, hey, here's the behavior around this asynchronous stuff, so that, okay, I've given him something. I know because of the system built in, this notification, he's going to get back to me in 24 hours. So they have this awareness, like you said, you don't have to wait a week to get an answer. You don't have
Yeah.
to get on a live call and then me tell you, all right, I have to go back and I got to look some stuff up before I give you a
Hmm.
full answer. And then you're wondering when that email's coming, that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
Just the mechanics of the whole asynchronous communication in the system, at least, for what Clarityflow is built for me, like that is like, it just allows me to set those boundaries and boundaries, and allow them, my coaching clients, to have the expectations set,
Hmm.
right? Like I could
Yeah,
tell
yeah. I
them,
was gonna say. I mean, I think that the setting expectations is key. It sounds like you do a really good job of that because I've heard from many coaches and I can see the ones who work really well asynchronously with their clients. They have a deliberate um, onboarding flow for a first time client where not only are they setting up the engagement and maybe they're showing them a thing or two about like here's how Clarityflow works. I mean, we actually give you like a generic unbranded video that you could use for that now or create your own, but they're also like setting those expectations. Like here's how we're going to communicate together, and it gives the client a level of comfort. And I found in my previous businesses and stuff that like that sort of thing really helps the client like uh, they're like in your corner throughout the whole time if you just have that shared understanding. Like even if things go a little bit off the rails down the road or something doesn't quite work, they're going to help you get through it. They're not going to be like this adverse relationship.
yeah, and that's the other nice thing too, right? Like, so, like last month, July, I was away twice with family, like two different times, beginning of the month, middle, third of the month. And I was just like, it was inconsistent for me to get in front of a screen just for a period
Hmm.
of time, right? But yet I could use my phone to at least reply with audio, text, maybe not share a screen or that kind of thing, or even log into their ConvertKit account to review something. But at least when there was a moment and Wi-Fi, and I was able to get to it, like clients were fine. They were like, okay, no problem. It is what it is. And then vice versa. Like when I checked in, like if I didn't hear from a client all week, I'd be like, hey, I'm just checking in. It's Tuesday. I want to make sure everything's good and you're not stuck on something. And they come back on Wednesday and say, yeah, I'm away. I'm like, okay,
Nice.
great, awesome. So it's like there's this, and it doesn't always seem like, just in the past coaching, like when I've done coaching in the past with live, it's always like when you cancel one of those calls, you almost feel bad. You're like,
Hmm.
okay, great. And then you think to yourself, like, all right, do I need this monthly bill? Like, that's how
Hmm.
I felt from the
Yeah, it's
client.
like you,
It's
you
like,
need to like justify its existence by showing up for these calls that you don't even necessarily need
right.
right now.
Yeah.
Um,
And so what
I
this,
love that model. I mean, not just because it's asynchronous, but just from the standpoint of like a productized service. It goes back to like, there are other services like that where it's like you just have access as long as you're subscribed to this service. You just have access whenever you need me. That doesn't mean like on
right,
call, pick up the phone like you're live. But when you have a question, it's like an insurance policy slash assistant slash uh
yeah,
like expert in your corner, and that's where like it's almost like you the client can still get value even if they don't contact you for a whole month, just like
exactly.
knowing that you're there if they need you, right?
Yeah, and truth be told, I mean, look, email marketing's unsexy. There's nothing sexy about it. Everybody wants to know what the latest social media hack is or Facebook ad hack or whatever. Like nobody cares about email marketing, right?
Hmm.
Until they realize that, hey, there's money in email marketing. If I do this
Yeah.
thing right, it's going to blow the others out of the water, right? But what's funny is that they'll get busy for 3 weeks, and I'll do my check-ins and things of that nature, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I was working on this sequence," and won't even talk about the ConvertKit thing. But then all of a sudden they'll come up for air, and there'll be like a sprint for a week and a half, and
Hmm.
they'll try to get. They're like, "Look, I've got some time in between projects, or there's a lull period for me in the season, and whatever the case is," and they just go. And part of the selling point is it's like you have me in your back pocket. When you
Yeah.
need me, I'm there, right? So it just
And
makes it that much easy. Like people need, especially with something that is as technical as automation and
yes.
personalization and segmentation, people need, that, hey, I need another pair of eyes to make sure that I'm doing this the right way.
Hey, just a quick break to tell you about Clarityflow. It's the software tool loved by coaches and their clients for communicating asynchronously in threaded conversations using video, audio, or text. My team and I designed Clarityflow for the modern day coach. It lets you give clients a single place to engage with you and all that you offer through your coaching business. Run coaching groups, cohorts, and communities using our Spaces feature. Create interactive courses using our Programs feature. Build your coaching library with templates and reusable content. And sell access to your coaching programs with subscriptions or one-time payments. Customize colors and connect to your domain to give clients a fully branded experience. You can use Clarityflow on the web or our mobile apps for iPhone, iPad, or Android. And connect any other apps using our Zapier integration. Start with a free trial or request a personalized demo and consultation by going to clarityflow.com. I'm glad you brought that point up. That's where I wanted to go next and kind of take it back to how you have sort of really just branded yourself around ConvertKit, the tool. I just think that's a really smart strategy in general as a coach and consultant to like that's a built-in large audience and they're great clients, great type of people to work with, right? But like you said, like I think folks might wonder like, well, why wouldn't someone just contact like ConvertKit's customer support for these types of questions? And I've used ConvertKit, I've used Drip, ActiveCampaign, I currently use Customer IO. Like they're all sort of different, but they all sort of do the same things more or less, but they are,
Syntax.
yeah, but they are very complicated and technical to use. And it's not so much like yeah, I could contact their customer support just to get an understanding of like what does this button do? You know, how does this data export work or whatever that might be. But what I always sort of wanted from those companies, and they never really gave it to me, was like, what am I doing here? Am I setting this up correctly, or am I really, or I'm making it way harder on myself and my subscribers, or what's the best strategy here? And there's a lot of like programming logic that goes into email marketing automation, even though the users might not actually be writing code. You're talking about like if this, then that,
Mhm.
delays and stops and things like that, like tracking events and there's a lot of technical stuff, and then integrating Zapier to your website to
Right.
the
Yeah, that's
purchase
a whole
flow,
nother
all this
thing. Yeah.
different stuff. Like it gets pretty complex really quickly. So like again, the standard support channels from any of these companies can sort of point you to a help doc, but it takes like a business consultant to be like, all right, here's what you really want to do here.
Right. And that's where it comes down to. Like they're great with the app support. They know the app. Like they know,
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this is what you need to do. These are the button you need to click. This is what you need to the screen that you need to go into. But and this is, sounds very similar to your experience, is like when you try to inject your business reasons for doing the things that you're doing, then everything goes sideways. They're like, okay, I'll be back in 20 minutes, like, or
Yep.
whatever, right? From the chat. That's where I come in because one, I've been doing email marketing like you. I've on Drip for a long time. I dabbled in Active Campaign. I've used just about every ESP that's out there at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I I mean, the methodology works, and I've been doing this
Mm-hmm.
for such a long time now that, like I know how all the pieces of the puzzle fit together in the big picture. And what I've learned, at least from my audience, is that they understand the puzzle pieces, but they don't have the picture,
Hmm.
right? And they want to know where the pieces go of that puzzle. And so that's where I come in, right? Like, hey, if you're selling digital products, this is the kind of things that we want to build. If you're selling a high ticket coaching program, then this is the kind of things that we need to build. If you're building a membership website, these are the kinds of things that you need to build, right? So
Yeah.
those aspects of it, like they kind of know, like if you're building a membership site, like, okay, I got to build proper onboarding. And then, well, how do I build the retention strategy into that? Like, what does that look like? And
Yeah.
all of the things like, and then how do I launch this thing? And how do I market it in an ongoing
Well,
way?
that's
Or,
a
you know, like all of those things. And so that's where the value of what ConvertKit Coach gives you is that it's my experience coming to the table, working with folks like, Pat Flynn and SPI and all of these other, Justin Welsh's and all of those kind of folks. I mean, I've been doing this long enough that I see what works and doesn't work. And then that's
mhm,
when people are like, hey, if he's doing it for them, maybe he can help me do it for
for
me.
sure. I mean, that also brings up another good question here, which is, okay, so again, I think it's really interesting how you've sort of how you focus in on ConvertKit users, but like you just said, like a ConvertKit user is going to be connecting ConvertKit to their website, to their shopping cart, to their membership platform, to maybe Clarityflow. We have a ConvertKit integration too, right? Like and so like, are you do you naturally get pulled into advising and consulting on like those other
100%.
tools
Yep.
as well?
100%.
Like
Yeah. I mean,
it's like they come to you for ConvertKit, but then you're putting all the integrations together for them. Is that?
yeah. I mean, truth be told, there's a percentage of my ConvertKit coach clients that don't use ConvertKit. Like, like
Mm-hmm.
I have an Infusionsoft, client. I have, a drip client. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, the methodology around the business is the same. It's just, as a developer, I developed in Java, Ruby on Rails, PHP. It's all syntax. If you understand the structures and the methods and things of that nature around
Mm-hmm.
programming, well, you can just learn the syntax. The syntax is
Yep.
there. So I apply that same logic with tools, right? And so
Yep.
I went from drip to ConvertKit. There's differences, there's similarities, there's nuances, things like that. And then, hey, what do we need, right? Like, do we need deadline funnel? Do we need Zapier to integrate with Airtable? Do we need Circle? But we need all these things. And yeah, and my experience comes in to that. I mean, that's part of the big ball of wax, so to speak, is like when we're building out the strategy of what you're doing, like what pieces of the puzzle do we need to tie back? And in my philosophy is that your email list is your core database. Everything that somebody does with your business needs to be in there because then you can leverage that
Mm-hmm.
and make your engagement in the emails and their inbox hyper personalized to them. You know that they've
Yeah.
been in your membership site for 2 months and they never logged in. Send them a campaign to get them logged in. Otherwise, what are
Yeah.
they paying for, right? So
And again, like that's like the difference between just going to the standard support channels because like their support, like whatever, like I might email customer IO support, but like they can only help me with customer IO. They're not going to help me with how these events are firing into my Rails app or
right,
how it's integrating with my other CRM over here, right? But that's where someone like you can actually put all these pieces together. I wanted to ask you as we start to wrap up here, like just like think about your own practice of how you're working with your clients and running this business, and you've really evolved what you do over the years a couple different times. I'm curious to know, like, okay, I guess number one, like maybe some specific things that have worked really well for you recently to manage your own time and you're managing multiple clients. I don't know. Is it just yourself, or do you have team members or assistants that work with you? How do you make your time investment and focus, more efficient in this type of work?
yeah. I mean, for the most part, it's me. I have a contractor that I use that is real recent, and he's been doing the book a days, basically the one a day, hire me for the day kind of stuff. And that's allowed me to focus more on the
Oh, so
coaching
like
side of
he'll
things.
be the person with them for the
Right.
day.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. And I'm there. We have a company Slack channel and everything. He's basically Jason, just 2 years, 3 years behind. Like,
Love
he
it.
understands my philosophy, which is great. I mean, I've been trying to find somebody kind of like that, with that at least
Hmm.
mindset, and he's go getter and he knows his stuff, and so it was great fun. Um,
Nice.
the which has allowed me to now focus more on pushing the coaching side of things out, because those book days, truth be told, you're hiring me for the day, but it's like 2 days out of the week, right? Because there's some prep work before that, and then there's maybe some after the day
Like
kind of
follow-ups.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 days, right? But if he's handling that, now that's 2 days back on my week, right?
Hmm.
And truth be told, it's those book a days that could lead naturally into the coaching program, right?
Hmm.
And so it's allowed me to say, okay, I can open up the door for the book a days, right? And bring more of those in, because I was really only booking at, at a maximum one a week, just
And
because
that's
I
typically the
was.
first thing that a new client would buy with you is a book a
Sometimes,
day.
yeah, yeah. I mean, depending on who the client is, but yeah, the
Mhm.
most times it would be a book a day, just to kind of see what they see and then move up to a custom project.
I really
But
like that idea. I actually haven't heard this type of specific model from other coaches before, where it's like it seems like most of them just go straight into a long-term coaching engagement, maybe maybe a few sessions or async access or something like that. But I like this because a book a day is like um, there's a lot of value there that you can get in one day. Like, let's set up this funnel, right? Like that's
mhm.
something that can actually happen in a day.
And it's a
But it's
no
also
brainer. They can do the math. There's like, they know
yeah,
how fast they're going to get it, and they know how much they're going to pay for it.
yeah,
And
they
they're
know
like,
like
okay,
literally on the calendar
yeah,
when it's going to happen, and
hmm
but then it's also like a really fast way to see what it's like to work with you and see
hmm
if it's like let's continue this relationship.
yeah, yeah. And what that does is, like, for me, I mean, to answer your question about the time factor, right? Like, I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Right now, I want to spend as much time as I can with them while they're still young. And
Hmm.
for me, it's like, hey, how do I get out away from the screen? So when the asynchronous coaching came about, that offer came about this year, was like, oh, this could work, because now I don't have to show up to a call at 2 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Wednesday or whatever for coaching, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
now async, and I can do this when they go to bed or whatever the case is. And that gives me time back to spend it where I actually want to, spend it with them. So for me, managing time, it's really figuring out ways that, one, I can help my clients and have them live the life of their own design, but two, how do I live my life the way that I want to design it? And so,
Yeah.
it's the asynchronous idea, and it's, this kind of goes back even, when you talk about productized services and stuff, like that was always for me, like, how do I make this easier, less hands-on, still same value, but like easier on both sides of the table, so to speak, right? Like,
Hmm.
they don't have to show up. I don't have to show up. We show up when we can. We can sprint at times, and we can slow down at times and still get a ton of value out of it. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, for me, it is the time factor. I mean, that's why I started the business in the first place, is the time freedom.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to sort of wrap it up, I wanted to just circle back to something that you talked about in the very beginning, and I just wanted to touch on like how you are marketing yourself and getting more and more exposure and bringing in these leads who would be purchasing like a book a day or getting on your list, of course. Um, you have a YouTube channel.
mhm.
You do email marketing. What is like what is your routine? Where are you actually investing your time and dollars and resources to like make sure that more potential clients are finding you? And also like this ties back to like you are attached to ConvertKit in terms of your branding? So like how much does that play into how and I'm sure ConvertKit sends you
Mhm.
clients as well. So yeah,
Yeah.
how does it all kind of fit together?
Yeah. I mean, truth be told, it had historically been Twitter, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that. I don't have a blog. I do have a YouTube channel. Um, you know, for me, ConvertKit is probably about 70% of my audience. They're ConvertKit customers, or at least moving towards ConvertKit in some way. And you know, the Twitter X aside, whatever things going on over there, but for me, it's really just about connecting with creators and people
Mm-hmm.
that are trying to build online businesses. And so what I've always found too is communities, whether it's free, paid, otherwise, just going in there, giving value, because these are business owners also that are trying to scale their business and learn a little bit more, and or whatever the case is, depending on the community that it is. There's always a ton of questions. And so for me, it's like, what are the questions people are asking? How do I turn that back around and maybe create a video or a social media post or an email about it and just answer questions? And I try to funnel everybody to my email list. And that's where everything happens. And then,
Huh.
there's no way that I, push people to a sales page or anything like that. You get on my email list. I want to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're about. And then give you the right product with the right
You know what?
message.
I was actually going to ask you about this maybe off air, but I'm just going to ask it on air because I'm really interested, and I think it'll be interesting for folks listening. I, I want to hear more about communities. Like, what is your strategy there? When you say communities, like, do you mean like you're joining private Slack groups, Facebook groups, membership sites where
Mhm.
where folks who look just like your ideal clients, that's where they're hanging out, and then you're literally spending time every day reading the threads and finding the questions and then getting in there and answering. Is that
All of those things. Yeah. I
it
mean,
sounds super obvious, right? Like,
yeah.
but
I mean,
like to me, I've been in lots of these communities over the years, but like I can never find the time to
yeah.
invest
I
in
mean,
like.
truth be told, I, like you said, every day. It's not every day. Like
Mm-hmm,
there's no way. Right. But what I try to do is try to find, and I've learned over the years, like kind of like what to look for and keying on and whatever the case is, you know, just being a part of being a part, whether it's a paid community or a Slack group or a forum somewhere or whatever the case is, just like, hey, are my ideal people in there, right?
mm-hmm,
Or just looking, you know, um, looking for people that are advocates of, like you mentioned, ConvertKit. I planted my flag with ConvertKit. So the Pat Flynn's and the Chris Duckers of the world that have a large following, okay, they're promoting ConvertKit. Who are the large affiliates of ConvertKit? Where do they go and what do they have? And do they have communities? And if they do have a
mm-hmm,
community, then they're probably promoting ConvertKit inside there. And so if they're using products like influencers, I guess you could say, are using
mm-hmm.
products and they're sending their audience to those products, you'll find me there too. Because
Hmm.
like you said, I
So
learned a
you're in
long time
there.
ago, like niching down and attach, like I did this with WooCommerce by accident, like a
Uh-huh.
long time ago. And I was like, oh, I became the WooCommerce guy. Okay. So I didn't like, totally by accident, but it was like, oh, they have customers. Their support aren't going to build custom features, but that's what I do. So
Yeah.
I'll just follow them. And so same thing with ConvertKit is like they've got people on their platform. Some people will never even look my way, but the right kind of people for my business will, and they'll find me. And that's what I'm
How do
trying to
they
do.
actually? How does somebody from a community who might see you in a forum or a Slack or something, even though you're answering questions and being super helpful and just being active and visible, how do they know that you actually offer this as a coach and as a
Usually just
service?
ask. Like I'll get DMs or, whatever. Like, so I'm in a bunch of different circle communities
Uh huh.
and, I'll get a message like, hey, you answered my question or whatever. Like, do you offer services or do you do this thing or whatever? Like, how do I sign
Mm-hmm.
up for your stuff? and I'll just tell them like whatever in context. I'll be like, hey, look, I offer a 1 hour coaching call. You could do that. That's a paid thing. I have a book a day service, that kind of stuff. And like,
Amazing.
it just happens like naturally just because I'm answering questions. And I like tools like Circle, and other kind of like Tribe, I think is another one, these kind of tools where there's a search mechanism in there, because usually when somebody asks a question, then my
Okay, so
thing
you can
kind of,
go look for the keywords, and you know where it's going to make sense for you to show up.
and also people coming in later, right? Like they're going to search for the thing. Like what are the
Hmm.
best lead magnets, or something like that. And then like a post from a year ago comes up and my thing's there. Right. And so,
Yeah,
you know, so that's kind of why I like communities, because it's that pool of people that are already good, could be potential customers of mine.
it's super interesting. It's like it's a channel that I still think, and I think a lot about like SaaS products and how to market SaaS, but it absolutely, of course, it works for like coaching and services. But just communities in general is one of those channels. If you think about it, like search and like SEO, like through Google and whatnot, obviously it's still really important these days. But between AI and also even without AI, just I feel like people are um, just less reliant on Google, or they trust the Google results less. I
I
know
think it's
personally for
more
me,
you
like
trust the humans more, right?
exactly.
So when you're in a
Like I'll go to like
community,
Reddit.
right?
I'll go to Reddit because I want people's opinions
Right.
on some topic. I don't want the people who have SEO optimized the top 10 pages on the internet for this thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, and you mentioned like how do people find you? Well, most of the time in some of the communities I've been a long time member of, I'll get pinged. Like I'll get pulled into a conversation more so than me reaching out to that answer that post or something,
Oh
because
yeah.
somebody will say like, hey, Jason's our resident email marketing guy. You need to talk to him, and they'll
Hmm.
tag me or whatever in the thing. And that's usually how I'm pulled into a lot of these things. And so it's
That's
I
also a really good nugget. Like, this sort of comes back to the theme of this whole episode of where you've become known as the email marketing guy and or the ConvertKit guy, right? Like, that's a really important branding thing, I think.
mhm.
I mean, I had it a few years back when I was doing a lot of stuff around productized services. People would ping me if the conversation is about productized services. I'm getting pinged and they're pulling me into it, right?
Mhm.
Um, these days I don't really have that anymore. A little bit with async, I think, but
Mhm.
uh, that's just a really important and really powerful concept that like if people can associate you with one word or one topic, like I think of uh, what's his name, um, the guy from Price Intelligently, Patrick Campbell,
Oh, mhm.
all things pricing, he's the guy,
Yep. Yep.
um, yeah, super
Yeah, and
interesting.
and that's why I, like you said, I think communities is powerful now, especially more than maybe ever, is that especially with AI coming out, people aren't really sure. Like when you got a Google result, you could click the link and kind of go to the page and be like, yeah, this is a shady page. I'm going back, right?
Hmm.
AI looks the same. And so you don't
Yeah.
know what that answer is, if it's good or not. And one, you can't say like, who do I hire for this? Like AI is not going to shoot that name out there, right? At least
Hmm.
not yet. And so when it comes down to the transactional type content, which is really what I'm focused in on, like I have top of funnel stuff, but transactional content is really where, like, I mean, I'm in business to make money, right? And so for me, transaction happens with the humans. And so if I can create those relationships and it occurs naturally just from trust or referral or whatever the case is, then that's where I've always gone. Like I've always had, in the past I've had podcasts because of the hearing of the voice. I have
Hmm.
the YouTube videos. People can see me. They can also see how I explain and teach things. And so that sort of level of content for me is most important, because that's where the conversions are going to happen. Right? Like an
Hmm.
SEO'd, hey, top 10 things you need to do for Black Friday email marketing campaign. Yeah, great. I mean, what am I going to
Hmm.
bring with that? I might bring some subscribers, but how close to the, the sale are they, right? And so
Makes total sense. Well, Jason, I mean, there's so many nuggets in this thing. Maybe we can, have you back on at some point, and we can do like a more of a deep dive into like strategies and things that we can do with email marketing, especially for coaches and creators. I know that we can go for probably many episodes on that topic, but um, Jason, this is awesome. Where can folks connect with you? I know it's nurturekit.co, right?
yeah, you
Um,
could go to nurturekit.co, or you could go to nurturekit.co/blueprint, and I give you uh, first 30 days of your subscriber. Basically, lay out every sequence and touch point that you want to convert them into a customer. Um,
I love it. I would assume you're asking for an email address to get them.
yes,
to get them.
absolutely.
That's how it works. This is great. And believe me, I have been subscribed and following your stuff for many years now, and it only gets better. So
Thank you. Appreciate
it's
that.
been awesome. All right,
Awesome.
thanks, Jason.
Well, thanks for having me.